Let me ask, because you're a sociologist, so you analyze this as a social phenomenon, but the values that these groups espouse, and they're not necessarily consistent values across different groups, but the values themselves have content. They can lead in a variety of directions. You've just raised the possibility of terrorism as an outcome of this. So I guess the question is how you factor in the actual beliefs of the people who are making up new publics, whether it's in Turkey or in Europe.
Islam, you were mentioning about the more globalized today dynamics. Because when you read the literature on globalism, before 9/11, Islam was not there. Nobody speak about Islam on the literature on globalism. Today, you don't have one single book without Islam.
Right.
So Islam becomes an active ingredient in our ways of thinking on globalism, on secular modernity, on Europe. That's something, first of all, we have to understand that this is a conversation not about Muslim conversation, but Muslim, Western, Christian conversation.
I'm wondering if we could switch the subject, because 9/11, of course, becomes this enormous history-changing event. How has it reshaped, if it has, the way you approach your work? What impact did it have on your thinking about these social movements that you were studying and that you had focused on for so long?
Exactly in that sense. That is to say, I thought I could have drawn boundaries in terms of my subject matter. I was working on the public sphere in Turkey, comparison with Iran and Europe, for instance, and on the veiling issue. And I thought I was not dealing with issues of violence, and this was not my subject, right? So after 9/11, each of us, I felt myself totally, of course, obliged, compelled to think about violence as well, and to find ways of linking my way of thinking to also violent forms of Islam. So somehow this was related, and I have to find a way to understand in which ways it was related, that I cannot make abstraction of violence. So that changed completely my work in that sense. Secondly, it's the global feature. Global means decentering, or the loss of the center, or the loss of the center, protected center at least. So 9/11 also had that impact, that we felt there was no longer center protected from violence. You remember maybe afterwards many articles speaking about third worldization of New York or of the United States, that not only other countries who were living through that, but also the United States suddenly became vulnerable. And it had a terrible impact on people who were not living in the United States, but who were still dreaming of the United States as a point of the arrival, where they can realize their dreams. I remember a Turkish friend, a very, very famous entrepreneurial woman, saying, I was crying because as if I lost my dream. My dream land was also infatuated. That's very interesting. A young girl, important gene maker. And so I think it had a very important impact on our imaginaries.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. I'd like to thank Nilufer Gole. I'm Clifford Chanin on behalf of the National September 11th Memorial and Museum.